Welcome everybody to our urban parking system repository that we've been developing in Enterprise Architect. Over a number of videos, we've developed our urban parking system, and recently we've been looking at decision modeling. My name's Scott Hebbard, and I'm joined today by Stephen Maguire. And today I understand that we're going to have a look at a more elaborate decision model and see how we might go about modeling that in Enterprise Architect. So welcome, Stephen. Nice to have you on board today. How do you create a more elaborate decision model in Enterprise Architect?
Thank you for the introduction, Scott, and always delighted to be here. Yes, today we're going to look at a slightly more sophisticated, perhaps more realistic example using decision model and notation, the language that Enterprise Architect has implemented and allows you to simulate. As always, we're going to set our perspective. So in the top right-hand corner of the application, we have a perspective drop-down, which lists the perspective sets. I've been doing some threat modeling earlier today, and I'm going to change my perspective now to decision modeling. That's in the requirements set of perspectives, and I choose decision modeling. The tool changes its focus as always, and we get a series of patterns which people can use to inject example models and starter models into their own repository by simply choosing the create model there. I like to do things from first principles, as you know, Scott, so I'm going to close that and start from pretty much from scratch. So we need to find a location for this in our browser window. We have got a decision models package there, and we have got a number of different packages under that. Let's have a very, very quick look at what we've done in previous videos. A single input remoterist membership with a spending score as an input and a simulation artifact there. And the other one we have here is a two input into a single decision table there. And I can click on this and, you know, I've got the decisions that come up. I can run a simulation from there and, you know, the tool will output the score that I get, or the membership level, which is gold. So a value of 28 for the spending score, frequency score of high, and we get a gold membership. The rules are written in that table, and you know, we can see the value of some of those rules with some annotations around them. This is the purview of the business people that would be modeling this and running these rules. The IT people can kind of sit back, relax, and wait for this to be finished, and the people to run the simulations with what if analysis. Remembering, Scott, that I'm going to stop this simulation now, remembering that the data sets provide us with ways of describing particular scenarios. So if I double click on this, that window pops up in the daemon expression, and I can open up a window that talks to me about different examples or scenarios. So a low number, a medium score, a default there, and you know, with the frequency data, a similar kind of setup. I've got, you know, frequent traveler, an infrequent traveler, and a moderate traveler there. So I'm going to move away from these now, and we'll start from scratch creating a more elaborate model. So let's do that, and let's put in a package into the browser. It will house this new model. So that's always a kind of a starting point, Scott, is to think about a package that will be the container for your work. Simply click on the decision models using the browser toolbar, package icon there, say new package, give it a name, and we'll say this is motorist membership level 4. So let's have a look at that, and we'll create a diagram there as well. Just before we do that, I'll use the arrow keys to move that down below the other two examples, and I'll create a diagram there. And the tool conveniently, because I've set my perspective to decision modeling, gives me just that to select from. So no any choices there other than to say that I accept the default name for the diagram there. Okay there. The tool puts up the decision model and notation components toolbox page, and I've got all the kind of elements that I need for my decision modeling. So let's make a start with this. I am going to put in a decision here, and I'll put it roughly there on the page. And it is going to be the same decision that we had before. Let's put that in there, and we'll move up to the top there and say it's that. And we want to make it into a decision table, which is done there. We can make it a little bit larger. And now we're going to say that there are different decisions. Before we had a situation where we just had input from a spending score, but in reality, the spending score might be calculated and might be itself a decision. So what we're going to do is drag in another decision and put it here, and we'll call it a decision table as well, and we'll call it spending score. So we're not just going to get a raw score from some database or spreadsheet or something about the particular motorist. And remember, I can use my alignment tools here from the layout ribbon, the alignment panel, and the make all selected elements the same height and width. So that keeps a little bit of standardization and keeps the diagram it's much easier to understand it. So we're going to put some other decisions on. Let's say we want the frequency, the reservation frequency, and before we got that as just a high, medium, or low, but let's put that on as a decision as well. And this time, let's choose a literal expression there, and we'll give that a name. And again, we use our alignment ribbon, make these the same size, orientation there. And let's put in another decision, and this one will be called we'll make this one into an invocation. And we'll talk about that in just a minute, what's going on with that and why we've chosen that one. So we'll copy that one in, and let's get back into our diagram here. And as always, Scott, I want to be able to, put some notes into these. So, let's just start with that good practice and get people into the habit of doing that. I've got this decision here. I'm not going to put that one in. I need to put in a note in there, and let's do that. Moving between curses there, and let's put in some notes for these other ones. I'll just put in this one for the time being, and when we complete the diagram, we'll make sure they all go in there and get values. So let's have a look at this. We've got 3 decisions here now on the top level, and we've got 1 decision there. I'm using EA alignment guides there to align these elements up, and let's put this one under there. And now we need to connect these guys with a relationship information requirement 2. So the input's going from that decision into this one.
Yep.
Effectively, what it means when it's executing, Scott, is that we need the decisions, the higher level things, the things that are at the tail end of that arrow, to be calculated first. And Enterprise Architect is going to do the work on that. It decides which ones need to be done first based on this graph. I like to call it a graph, these arrows that are connecting up the various elements. Now, one thing we didn't have in the other examples, and like I said, we're going to make this a little bit richer, is we're going to use a business knowledge model. So it's kind of effectively, if you like, a way of reusing some information or some decisions. So I'm going to call it a decision table. So it gets a similar list of types to the decision. And again, I'm going to make these the same height and width and align them there. So I now can make a connection between this one and the business knowledge model and the motorist loyalty score, which is an invocation, and again, a decision table. At this point, Scott, what I like to do is to say, look, it's not that easy for newcomers to understand this. And so looking at our library of legends, I have a decision model and notation legend here. I can simply drag that onto this diagram and let EA do the magic, right? So
Yeah.
it's told me what those things are. So if I'm unsure, I can see what's going on. So let's put that down out of the way for a little bit, and we can keep referring to it. I'm going to put another element onto the diagram, which is called a knowledge source. So when people are looking at these diagrams in the project, the toolbox here, I should say, we have got a number of different elements. One of them is a knowledge source. Let's drag that on and, let's give that a name and what it is. And again, I'll make it, roughly the same size as these ones using my alignment panel there, line that up. And I've got now an element called customer relationship management system data. So the motorist loyalty score is coming from this customer relationship management as a source. It doesn't describe exactly how that happens, but we can put those in the notes or detail that in more detail with another part of the model. Let's drag this line up here and say authority requirement 2. So we've got that relationship. So that's the beginning of what we're doing. And what we need to do now, Scott, is this motorist membership tier, right? It's going to get its input from these different decisions. And so the table that we created in earlier videos will be different because it's going to get these things from these decisions. And what we can do is we can do the same thing that we did in previous videos is we still need to get some input data for these particular decisions. So let's put an input data. Well, actually, let's first put an item. Well, we'll put the input data in first. Doesn't really matter which way you do it, but we'll have a look at how that works. So we need to input that into this one, into the decision, and Enterprise Architect does the work. We can simply use the central alignment tool there. I can control A. I've selected everything in the model. I'm going to move it down a little bit because I want to make a little bit more room. So plenty of opportunity, Scott, with the layout and the orientation and the style of things to create diagrams that are, very, very useful and compelling to an audience. What I need to do is I need to put in some elements that are going to be allow us to do our simulation. In fact, like the what if scenarios. So that's an item definition. So I'll put that in and I'll give that a name, and we'll again use our layout things to change some of the shape of this element, and we'll bring them across a little bit, and there we have it. And I like to line these up with these ones, so using the alignment things as well. They're not connected to that element, they're not in the language connected, but by putting them above there visually, it's easy to see that that's what they're about. You can see the name is slightly different. No harm done there. They can have different names at slightly different audience reading them. And we need to what we need to do now is to set this one here, and we need to decide on what that's going to be. We're going to say that it's going to be a number there. So if we look in here, we need to first set our item definition. And so we go into our toolbar there, and we're going to go into decision models, model level 4, item definition, customer reservation, total data. So that's there. We can now set the type on that as well. So I'll just put that in a minute, and let's just save that for a minute. And we have set that there, and that's all good to go. And yeah, let's save that. We'll come back and do that in a minute. This one here, we've got that set as the number there, so we can do that as a precursor. That's why I like to put those ones in first. I mentioned that in a previous video. The customer reservation thing can be set, definition can be set first, and that's going to put that as a number. And then this one's going to have the number set for it. So that's a sort of a simple step to do that first, and then you get it coming through. I'm going to stop there, Scott, because we've got most of the elements that I want to put onto this diagram. I'm going to get you to do some of your time travel magic, and we'll see you back in a few seconds.
Well, welcome back to our YouTube audience. We've done a little bit of editing and time travel magic, and we now have our completed diagram. And I can see there are a number of different options and pieces of data and definitions. So I'll hand over to you, Stephen, to tell us a little bit about what this more comprehensive model does as far as modeling the different tiers for our parking.
Thank you, Scott. Yes, we have completed the diagram. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this legend up. And remember, you can move any elements around in a diagram. I'll just put it there for a minute and then move it further up to the top here. Enough space for it.
Yeah.
And let's line it up with the other elements there. And
yeah.
I'm just going to leave that there so we can just see what's happening in our model. So the thing that makes this different from the more simple examples that we gave were that there was, in the other examples, and they're available here in the browser, there was simply one decision, and we had various inputs into it. Now we've got this hierarchy, or this graph of decisions, if you like, where our motorist membership tier is not being decided by input values per se. It's being decided by the input by different decisions. So we've got a decision about the spending score. How did we arrive at the spending score? And it wasn't just a simple value. It was the customer total reservations. I'm going to use the pan and zoom window, Scott, just to zoom in on this model. And I can do that there. I've got it down in the bottom right-hand corner there. And I can zoom in and then move the focus rectangle there. So you can see that we're not just a single input into this spending score, but the customer's total reservations, then the average reservation value, because a customer might be making a reservation of $3 per week, and that's not a great deal of revenue for the parking meter system. But if their average reservation value was something like $40, they were staying overnight, they were visiting the city and perhaps going to a show or an opera or something, and they were parking for a longer period of time, then if their average reservation was $40 per park, and they were making a reservation every week, then that's going to make them have a higher spending score. So that information and that decision will be made inside this decision here. And I'm going to turn on presentation mode so we can sort of see exactly what I'm talking about. So a facility on the layout ribbon and the helpers panel, and you can see that it's highlighting the element that I'm talking about. So that spending score has been determined by these other inputs.
These two inputs, yes.
And then that spending score will then be an input into the motorist membership tier. And so we again have reservation frequency data. So how frequently are they booking? And we also have a motorist loyalty score with an input of what's happened to that one? An input of through this element here, which is the business knowledge model of a loyalty score. So how long have they been with the system? So records the total time that the motorist has been a customer. So that is like an expanded view, if you like, of what's possible with the decision model and notation language. We've got some added things in here. Again, to focus in on there, I can just, use my mouse wheel or my pan and zoom window to focus in. We've got 3 different types of decisions, and 2 of them are the same type. So we've got a decision table here. Looking over at the properties window, we can see that's a decision table. The spending score is a decision table as well. This one here, the reservation frequency score, is a linear expression, and this one is an invocation. The business knowledge model, which is, as I said, a way of reusing information, has been defined as a decision table as well, with an input. I
still don't quite get what the invocation is as compared to the other 2.
Right. Well, the other 2 are doing the work themselves, if you like. The motorist loyalty score with the invocation is saying, look, I'm going to get the information from another model, and it's going to come from this customer history model. So the reason why that customer history model is there is because they that can be reused in a number of different decisions. And so anything that you want to reuse, you could, put in one of these as a business knowledge model. The other thing is you could create reuse as well with a decision service that we haven't talked about. We'll talk about in a later video, but I'm not going to simulate this one. I haven't finished this model off. There's a little bit of work in creating these different decision tables and invocations and other elements. So I'll leave it up to the audience to finish this model off or do an example similar to this one for their own discipline, for their own vertical or horizontal markets. So again, Scott, one of my favorite parts of the tool, and also one of my favorite specifications, the decision model and notation for making decisions about things that occur in your business.
I can see why it's your favorite, because it's so powerful, and I can imagine it being used by so many different organizations out there. So it's great to see it in practice. So to all of our loyal Sparx Systems YouTubers, it's great to have you on board. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, please feel free to like the video, and as always, you can press the bell notification, and you can comment on the video if you have any suggestions. And as always, we encourage you to subscribe to Sparx Systems YouTube channel so you can hear the latest and greatest news from Sparx Systems as it comes online. Stephen, that's been presenting today, his credentials are listed in the description of the video below. So if you have any questions about decision modeling, you can reach out via Stephen's LinkedIn details, and we welcome that as well. As always, Stephen, it's been great to see how easy it is to model decisions in Enterprise Architect, how powerful Enterprise Architect is, and I understand that we're only just scratching the surface, but it really does look like there's a lot of power under the hood there as far as decision modeling is concerned.
Thank you, Scott. Always a pleasure to be here. And yes, we have only just scratched the surface of the tool's potential.